Welcome back to Oneness. Today it is day 75 and we will be looking at verse 75 from Taoteching. As usual, let's observe a few seconds of silence. Alright, so now let's get started. So the verse 75 begins like this. Why are the people starving? Because the rulers eat up the money in taxes, therefore the people are starving. So the first three lines clearly talks about this is related to rulers and government who tax people excessively, that way the people starve. So to understand the context of this verse, we need to go back in time, say 2500 years ago, when Laotzu written this book. So during those times, the rulers, king and emperor, they go on war with the neighboring countries. When they go on war, they need lot of resources. So they tax people excessively. And at those times, the taxes were collected in the form of grains and livestock. So literally, when people give their grains and livestock to government, they starve. And that's what Laotzu means here. So the other way to look at this verse in a modern day context is, the word tax can be interpreted as taxing. So what does a taxing mean is demanding both physically, mentally. So when we demand people too much, then we starve them of connecting to their own inner self. And also they can starve to express their true self. That's how I see the first three lines. Then Laotzu goes on to say, why are the people rebellious? Because the rulers interfere too much, therefore the people are rebellious. At those times when the ruler interferes too much with people, people become rebellious. So this we can see even right now. When a government enforces policies, rules and laws which are not acceptable to people, so they form a rebellion. When they form a rebellion, they protest against the government to show how they are not satisfied with the government's decision. So that's what Laotzu means here is, people become rebellious when the ruler interferes too much. Then Laotzu goes on to say, why do the people think so little of death? Because the rulers demand too much of life, therefore people take death lightly. These lines are quite intense. So what Laotzu means here is, when the rulers demand too much of life from a people, then people prefer death over life itself. It is a kind of people give up a hope on their life and then they look forward to death. It is quite an intense verse or the very intense lines. So in a modern context, when we look at this verse, we see people who are depressed and they have a suicidal tendency or suicidal thought. It is because they can no more, they can live with themselves. It can be either because they set a very high standard and they fail to match their own standard, or they get disappointed, they cannot accept themselves because someone else set a standard for them which they cannot meet. So that way people feel depressed because of their life situation, and then that way they prefer death over life itself. And that is why we should not demand too much of someone or even our own self. And then Laotzu ends this verse by saying, having little to live on, they know better than to value life too highly. So when someone interferes too much with the other people, or when they demand too much, then people don't value their own life. So that is why it is better that, we think what is the benefit for the other person. Instead of putting our needs first and expectations first and demanding and interfering with people, it's allow the other person to bloom in their own natural way. That's what I understand from this verse 75. So to quickly summarize this verse in a modern day context is, if you're leading, if you're a leader at a workplace or a society or at home, even if you're leading your own kids, don't demand and interfere with their natural process. If you demand and interfere too much, they don't connect with their own inner nature. So stay away from demanding. The demanding comes from the expectation that we have towards the other person. And the other way is, don't demand or interfere with your own self. When I say your own self is, don't set a very high expectation of yourself and then regret that you're not able to meet that expectation which you set, and also don't get stressed too much. That's how I see this verse 75. With that, one actionable thought for today is, today, throughout the day, observe your own self, how you're interacting with your own self as well as towards the other people. Are you demanding and interfering with your own thoughts? When I say demanding is, are you pushing your own limits? Or when it comes to the other person, do you hold an expectation from someone and trying hard to enforce it on the other person? If you find yourself interfering or demanding from someone or yourself, then take a break from it. Step back and then allow the nature of your own self and the other person to bloom. So that way we will become less demanding and interfering, more of accepting our own self and the other person the way they are. With that thought, let's conclude day 75 and talk to you tomorrow. Thank you.